About 2 million women reach menopause every year. That's about 6,000 per day. That means they stop having their periods for 1 year. Now, the average age to begin is 52, but it can happen anywhere from 45 to 58. And here is the real kicker. A lot of people don't know this. It can last for years. The list of symptoms is endless: hot flashes, trouble sleeping, irritability, weight gain. And it seems like medical providers and medical resources have historically not focused on the serious issues that women face during menopause. So, in this episode, the goal is going to be how seriously this impacts women and what kind of help is out there. So, joining me today is my old friend. She's also a chef, Amanda Hampton. Amanda, welcome to the program. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She's had a big, exciting life, as all of my guests have. She's originally from New York. She attended an all-girls boarding school until high school. She graduated from Wesleyan University with a degree in American Studies. She completed an advanced degree in underwater archaeology at the University of Edinburgh. And while living in Europe, she met and married Matthew. They had 2 children, Elsa, and I'm going to say this incorrectly. Say it correctly, your son's name.
Alistair.
Alistair. Okay. And during their time, that happened when they were in Amsterdam, she's worked as a chef since 1986. She has her associate degree of occupational studies and culinary arts from the California Culinary Academy in San Francisco. She's been a chef at many different restaurants, including a place at the table where I used to work or do work, volunteer. Her love of travel and her experiences as an expatriate inspired her to become a host mother to more than 7 international students since 2021. She has a lifelong passion for single-sex education and the benefits of boarding school for all young women. And the best part, she did not hesitate when I put out the call for women going through what our mothers and grandmothers used to call the change of life. Yeah. So, Amanda, again, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Amanda.
And you know, I think we get some of these terms confused. There's perimenopausal and menopausal. So perimenopausal is obviously kind of the lead up, to the red carpet of menopause.
Yes.
Talk about when that started for you and what that was like.
So I'm 55 now, and I'd say 13 years ago, I started having a whole host of symptoms, such as adult acne. And that's pretty boring when you have wrinkles and acne simultaneously coming on. I had crazy mood swings. I would want to just sort of drive, a fork through my hand sitting at dinner. And then I'd have these crazy dreams at night that were somewhat sexual in nature. It was just all over the place. It was very overwhelming. And I went to my doctor, and this is in Amsterdam, so he was just our family doctor. And I explained to him, and he said, "Oh yeah, no, that's perimenopause." And I thought, what
is that?
What are you talking about?
Ever told me about
exactly. It was like, what? There's no one's talked about that. So he said, "Yeah, no, it's about it's like the 10 years before menopause." I'm like, I can't feel like this for 10 years. So I was pretty lucky in that I did get recommended some degree of treatment. I think I was put on Yaz birth control and some other stuff. Kind of helped, wasn't great, but it, at least somebody was telling me what was going on so that I was able to.
You felt like you were kind of on your own.
Yes, and it definitely, in retrospect, I think I was a lot more emotionally, it was a lot more emotionally overwhelming than I realized. I look back on some choices I made, some feelings I had, and I'm like, I don't know who that person was.
Right, like you were affected,
yes,
emotionally,
yes,
by this physical situation.
Yeah. Overwhelming at times, I would say.
So when did the perimenopause turn into the menopause?
So that was the interesting part is when I moved to the States, I was put on some other medications like spironolactone, and I sort of was on low Lestrin, and I felt pretty good. And then I see a FNP, I don't see actually no OBGYN, and she's great. And she said, "I think we need to, see if you're having periods still." And I was like, "Oh, please don't take me off my perfect medications.
Right,
things are going so well." And so I did. I went off everything, and lo and behold, didn't have a period. So she was like, "Well, there we are." And that was 5+ years ago. So I was 50.
Okay.
I was lower than the
So,
average
right,
age.
lower than the average.
Yeah.
And did you do or seek any hormone replacement therapy?
I didn't at the time because I really felt okay. I mean, I was allowed to stay on the spironolactone. I came off the birth control because it was like, well, you're not ovulating anymore. And then I had a very strange experience in that I started working at a place at the table, and I was working around women, and the whole kind of women syncing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suddenly had a massive period. And I was like, well, what's happening? And then another one a month later, and I went to the doctor, and then they got very panicked. And this is actually before I think I saw my FNP. And they're like, oh, this is terrible. Means you might have endometrial cancer, and I had to go for a biopsy, which is horrifically painful. And then that's when I think I changed my FNP, and she was like, women's bodies are very complicated. We don't really know. She's like, you don't have cancer. Sometimes your body just sort of has like a last hurrah. So, that was the biggest menopausal symptom I had. And then kind of everything went back to sleep, and I felt pretty okay until this year. And that's when really kind of serious menopausal symptoms came on. So I had kind of a strange journey between really severe perimenopause, kind of a quite technical menopause, and now this year was the year where I was like,
so what are the
oh.
symptoms that are the most annoying?
Starting at the beginning of the year, I couldn't metabolize caffeine in the same way. Like suddenly I used to drink caffeinated beverages all day being a chef. You just like are drinking Diet Coke or
Right.
iced tea, never affected me. Suddenly I'd have one cup of tea and feel like, it was
Wired.
jet fuel. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
ah. And same thing with wine, alcohol actually. I'd have 1.5, 2 glasses wine and feel completely overwhelmed. And then I started having heart palpitations, like out of nowhere. I'd be sitting on the sofa watching Friends or Seinfeld,
Nothing disturbing.
nothing disturbing,
Yeah.
and my heart would be like, huh. So then they did that heart halter monitor thing,
Right.
and they were like, no, nothing wrong with you there. And then weight gain, just like 5, 7 pounds came on that just would not move no matter what. Felt really like craved sugar all the time. Basically would have been happy surviving on cake. And that had never been my thing. I was never like a sugar person. And sudden gastrointestinal issues, just can't digest dairy, can't eat certain vegetables. So it was sort of really unpleasant for several
So
months.
what did your doctor say?
That's when we started talking about, I guess they informally were called HRT. I don't even know if they really
Right.
use those terms anymore. But I said, look, I can't do this. Like,
need
I can't.
something.
Yeah, I mean, I need to talk about it. So I am now on a patch, and I take progesterone at night, and it has been life-changing. But I think I only felt comfortable because I had a great FNP. She's been really
Right.
open-minded, wonderful, supportive. She had talked about these things. She's like, if things change, come back to me. And then one of my lifelong friends, who I went to Spence with in New York, this is her specialty. She lives up in New England, but she is a OBGYN with the specialty.
Be careful there.
Sorry.
It's okay.
A specialty in this field. And she's been talking to me for years, like, you have to know, there's all these, things that can be done. Don't shy away from it. So I was lucky. I felt very comfortable going to the doctor.
Yeah, and I mean, I know there's a lot of concern about hormones being connected to cancer, certain kinds of cancer. So, but you felt comfortable with your doctor walking you through it and
did.
knowing that you were doing something that when you weighed those options, this was the right option for you.
Yes, I had also several years ago had participated in, I guess it's called genetic counseling for breast cancer. And they came up with that I'm really just at average
Risk.
And because I go get my mammograms every year religiously, and I go see my FNP religiously every year, I felt like there's enough data on me personally
Sure,
to feel
sure.
confident
Yeah.
that, we were all making an informed choice. They had enough data to prescribe it. I knew what I was, what I was taking, and also what to look out for. And you have to go, I'm actually probably due right around now to go back and do my 6-week check-in, having started these medications. So
What do you think about in terms of talking about this stuff? I mean, are there people to talk to about it? Do you think, obviously we talk to our friends, right? But do you think there's enough support for women that are going through it?
No. I mean, again, I'm a pretty lucky person in the world. Just, having the educational resources, the support system. I think for the average American woman, no, not at all. And I think there is so little information starting with perimenopause and certainly with younger women. I work with a lot of younger women and I sort of jokingly share a lot of this stuff with them. And it's amazing how many of them don't know what's coming,
Sure.
And, some of them are in their late 20s, early 30s. And I make jokes like, enjoy your 30s because your 40s, there's a bunch of
Yeah,
stuff
you
coming
just
your
don't
way.
know. Everybody has
Yeah.
different reactions.
And there's, a lot of changes happen when you're in your early 40s, like my eyesight changed, a bunch of stuff happens. But this one's a big one, and unless you feel like you're being well supported and well educated from a young age, it can be very destabilizing if you don't know what's happening.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women have had the experience that they haven't been taken seriously when they go to their doctor. And that's a big problem because it is serious and it does impact your whole life.
Yes, and if you don't have, I think, great people in women's health where you are, where you live, it's going to be harder and harder for young women, older women to get this information at the time they need it.
Yeah, I really regret my mom died in 2012, and I regret not talking to her about menopause because I really didn't know what her experience was. And later her friends said, "Oh, she told us she had a great menopause." And
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
okay. And I kind of did too. So I guess that it does track that there's some genetic components to it.
Yeah, my mother did not talk to me about any of this stuff. I think it was just the generation. It
Sure.
just was not part
Something that
of,
you would talk about.
Exactly. She did maybe in the last year sort of try to politely and vaguely inquire if I had already been through menopause.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, years ago. She was like, really? So I think I was younger than her, younger than she was when she went through menopause. But yeah, I mean, that was sort of the closest we got to it. Like, oh, so have you been experiencing any changes? Like
That's
all
so
the
funny.
language.
Yeah. My mom would have had
Yeah.
no problem talking about it. I just didn't think to
Right.
ask because
Yeah.
she was dying. We had a lot of other things to talk about.
Right.
So, I mean, so what do you think has mitigated your symptoms the most? It's the hormones.
Yes, I definitely feel like it's been the hormones. There's just been, I think some of the gastrointestinal stuff is best addressed, at least it has been with me, with probiotics and prebiotics and changing your diet
Right.
and all those fun stuff. Like, if you're not going to, if dairy doesn't agree with you anymore, I'm just not going to eat dairy. I'm not going to try to fight the good fight or whatever. It's just, okay, I've had 55 years of dairy, no more.
It's time to move on.
Yeah, really. I definitely, but there were things like, and I've seen this a little bit in the news, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to like overstep, but how when the estrogen falls away, ADHD symptoms in women are sort of revealed. And I definitely, the biggest change for me was that I felt very scattered for those months, like incapable of
Being organized.
yeah, and just and in
Yeah.
a kitchen when you have to multitask effectively, it was very challenging to suddenly be over there, doing something and then turn on the sink and think, well, I have to go back and turn that off and forget. And then you
Right.
turn around, the sink is like full and you're like, oh, and this is stuff I never used to forget. So now that I'm on the hormones, that's kind of
Gotten better.
much better. And that's very important professionally. Like, I don't want to be in a situation where my job performance is affected because my hormones are so out of
Sure.
whack. So it's not just your sort of personal well-being
everything.
and mental.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's your whole life.
Yeah, it's your whole life.
Yeah, well, that absolutely makes sense.
Yep.
What kind of advice would you give to other women?
I think it's very important that you choose very wisely with who your healthcare providers are. I certainly feel for me, and so I can't speak to everybody, I had a much better experience with an FNP than OBGYN, especially because I think to a certain extent you don't need an OB at this point, right? You're not having children. You're, in the GYN. So I just had a better experience with FNPs. They seemed a lot more in touch with real personal relationships and you personally, who you were and what was going on, more so than just the generic, oh, well, you're at this age, let's just
Right,
look
so
it
more,
up.
maybe a more holistic approach.
Yes, definitely more holistic. So I think that's very important. I think there's just no shame in this. I mean, it's it is what it is. You're going to go through it. And what do they say? The more you resist, the more it persists. So
Sure.
and I really hope for all these women, they have loving partners, whoever those people may be, and that can, weather the storm
Support
and help
them.
them and support them. And, also not, call them crazy, because there definitely was, certainly in the beginning with perimenopause, not knowing is what you don't know, you don't know. So suddenly there's all this stuff going on and you
don't know what to attribute it to.
you don't know what it is. And maybe you think, oh, well, I've just, rediscovered myself or something. You kind of start thinking crazy things. And it's like, no, that's your hormones
Talking.
doing crazy stuff inside of your,
Yeah. And maybe if there was more money for research
Right.
of this topic, there would be more resources. So
Yes,
hopefully if we
absolutely.
continue to talk about it, that will happen. So
Yeah.
Amanda, thank you so much for sharing your story. I
more
really
than happy
appreciate
to.
it. And we will be back in a moment.
Thank you.